All right, in the spirit of this week's essay, I'm going to try and do this in one quick take. I spilled some sauce on my shirt. It is way too late on a Monday evening, but we're going for it. This week, I've been thinking a whole lot about deadlines and why they matter. I've never really liked them. I've always been an extension guy, at least since I've been later in high school and college. But more recently as a teacher, I've seen how powerful they are for my students. And more recently, as someone writing essays and producing videos, how important they've been for myself as well. I've always had this drive to create effortlessly, and I see this all the time online, just gurus talking about being super authentic or getting into flow state, or only creating when you want to, never having it feel forced. And I think those are awesome sentiments, and I don't think they're impossible goals to have. But I also think that they take a little bit of force up front and a whole lot of practice before that state just snaps into cue. I just collected my sophomore's first narratives, and it's always a reminder for me how hard it is to tell stories that we already know, even if it's about a place we've loved our whole life. It's very tricky to put that into a curated piece of writing, or to film a video, or to give a presentation. The second we have to share it in a produced way, roadblocks start to appear. And I'd like to say that's way easier for me, someone who has a decade plus of writing and editing experience, but it's sometimes really hard to talk to my students about that too, and to figure out where to go from where they're stuck. In the past, I used to tell them it's super easy, just write like you're talking to a friend or to your parents. More recently, I think I've been a little more careful about equating just chatting or telling a story with sharing a story in an intentional way. They're really just different muscles. Like when we're chatting, we have body language, we have the energy of the interaction. We can go back and correct mistakes. We can feed off the other person's reactions. And most of the time, especially if they're people that we have some baseline of amicability with, there's really low pressure to do so. But as soon as we have time to create something and practice and share something that's had thought and intention put into it, suddenly the stakes are raised. And whoever's receiving that story has time and space and competition to critique or ignore it. It's just not the same thing. This being authentic or writing or speaking like you would to a friend, it's a good sentiment, and it's something to practice getting to that state. But as soon as there's a deadline, or you're on camera, or there's time between you and the consumer, it's a performance. And all performances, the stakes are raised. And in the last few years, even though I've always been a pretty good student and a good writer, I finally realized that my fear of deadlines is not just this laziness or procrastination. It's a recognition of that performance and the higher stakes, and a fear that it's not going to be perfect. And the reality is it's never going to be perfect. And that's why I think deadlines are so important, especially as someone like me who leans into perfectionism and has a hard time just sharing my ideas. Deadlines force me to do that. And as a byproduct, they also get me into that flow state and get me hyped about what I'm creating. Like as soon as I started recording this video, all the stress and anxiety of setting everything up and thinking about this to-do item went away. Like now I'm just performing, I'm engaged, I'm excited, and I'm sharing stuff I want to talk about. I know my students hate them. I do too. But I think deadlines are a necessary x-ray for our creativity. They cut through all the BS, they cut through all of the emotional blocks and lack of skills and any questions we have, and force us to just lay it all out there and see where we're at and see what we need. And that, I think, is a good thing overall. That's it for this week. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.